UFO sightings are in the meantime worldwide. We have 10,000s of people who saw UFOs and people who are serious, not only hoaxes again. And in antiquity we had the same thing. In Africa, there is a tribe called the Dogon. And the Dogon, they say they were visited by beings from the solar system of Sirius. The humans asked the gods, where do you come from? And they gave names, but the names mean nothing to us. The names are the names of them. To us, it's a word which has no meaning on the firmament. So we don't know where they came from, and we don't know where they went. Definitely they went back, and they promised to return. They are back again. Since roughly 30 years, we are confronted with the phenomenon which we call crop circles. In the beginning, they were simple, primitive circles. And now it is normal in our society, we look for a reasonable explanation. So we found all kinds of explanations. What could it be? And I read in the scientific literature incredible stupidities how to explain these crop circles. But the pictures on the so-called circles are not circles anymore. They become bigger and bigger and much more complicated. Now we always look for the next plausible, reasonable answer. And one of these reasonable answers were, it must be hoaxes. So, and of course, we found hoaxes. They admitted, they showed even how they make these circles and things. But the hoaxes are nothing compared to the real gigantic pictures which in the meantime appear of a sudden. And in some cases you can prove it. They appear within a few minutes, and they are there. So there's no way out, it's no more hoaxes. The primitive circle, yes, are hoaxes, but not the gigantic pictures. So somebody is obviously trying to give us an information. I suggested we are visited again in our days by extraterrestrials. They are looking to us. Now, it would be easy with their technology to just show up on a gigantic football stadium. The cameras are there already, but because they know us, we are the offspring of them. They know how our reaction would be. We would be completely shocked. Our religions worldwide would crash down. It would be a catastrophe, and they don't want to shock us. They know our reaction, that they do it in another way. Slowly, slowly, they make gigantic pictures in the ground, knowing that humans use and search for the next plausible answers. So we have 20 plausible answers, and then we realize the next plausible answers makes no sense anymore, because these things appear overnight, these things appear within a few minutes. So we have to come up with the question, what is it? Is someone up there who tries to give us an information? Are we too stupid to understand the information? Because we always think, well, it must be wrong, it must be hoaxes. Some of them are hoaxes, but the big, complicated designs are not hoaxes anymore. They want that we realize there is something out of humanity, out of this planet. After we have tried to explain everything in a natural way, we have to come to a conclusion. There is no more natural answer. There is something behind our knowledge. That's why they do it. If you stand in Nazca with your foot, you see nothing. You see no difference. You have to stand exactly on a line. Then you see it goes down into the ground about 4 or 5 centimeters. But you see it only directly standing there. 2 meters away, you see no difference. It's all brown, rust, sand, that's all. The natives want to give signs to the gods. One day, the work of the so-called gods was done. They said goodbye, we came back in a few thousand years, goodbye everyone, they disappeared. But on Earth, the natives had the next generation and the next generation, and they were all talking about the gods. And they said, to our grandfather's time, the gods from the sky were here. Which gods? Up there. Then a high priest may come up with a good idea. We must show them signs, the gods. We must signalize them. We are still here. We are praying. We are hoping of your return. And now the natives start to make signs in the ground of such an overdimensional size that you can see them only from the air. And again, Nazca is not isolated. I know from the Ethiopian book of the king, the Kebra Negest, that King Solomon had a flying machine. In the Kebra Negest, it says that King Solomon had not only flying machines, he had maps. Maps from the surface of the earth. He knew exactly on which part is a jungle, on which part is a desert, etc. It might well be that King Solomon, with one of his flying machines, once flew to Nazca. In the Hindu mythology, we have the twins called the Maruts. They are described, they had flying machines. They were flying over the planet, visiting different tribes. So King Solomon, the flying Maruts, the twins, were maybe in Nazca. And they all created line when they came to a landing point. And the natives imitated and made lines. And the natives made sign for that. Hey, we are here. We expect you. We have offerings for you. We have food for you. Please visit us again. Give us your knowledge. That's why the natives made gigantic figures in the ground. Another suggested now it's a prehistoric Inca sport place. Something like a prehistoric Olympia. Others said now these are copies of Fata Morganas. So the natives somewhere in the air, they have seen some lines, maybe in the clouds. It was a starting place for hot air balloon. We know that hot air balloons could have existed in prehistoric time in South America. It's theoretically possible, but we have no writing, no written record about it. But even for hot air balloons, you don't need landing strips. Hot air balloons just start on one place. Another one said now, these are acre plots, but acre plots means growing of something. There was never something growing there. Another one said, now these are procession streets, for some religion. It's ridiculous. Streets which started abruptly, ended abruptly, etc. Another one suggested, no, this is a prehistoric map. A map for what? For where? In Nazca, there is a geometrical figure which is never shown to the tourists. I made a few hundred photos of it. It's gigantic. It's different circles, a big circle, two smaller circles, and around them are triangles and so. And this is geometry, is high geometry. It does not fit to the natives. We don't know what the meaning is of it. The tourists are not overflown there. By the way, the tourists today in Nazca, this is another thing which I hate. The pilots, they fly the tourists over these signs, the fishes, monkeys, birds, etc., but not over the lines and not over the geometrical pattern. And just a few years ago in England, the same design, which I call looks like a mandala, the same design appeared, but this time in England. Now between England and Nazca, there are 20,000 miles. In the last few years, in the desert of Jordan, again, gigantic figures were found, only found by the air. It's comparable to Nazca, with hundreds of designs, rings, circles, triangles, etc. And this mystery goes on worldwide. Always, some of the prehistoric people made designs for the gods because you can see them only from there. I suggest the first language which the humans had was the language of the extraterrestrials. This you can still read in the Bible before the Tower of Babel. It says, and everyone had the same language at that time. Later, the human society separated. They started to travel and they started to develop their own languages. The first language of the humans was the language of the extraterrestrials. Adam learned it from the extraterrestrials, and Adam gave everything the name. Later they separated and they developed other languages. This is called a bush. This is called a river. This is called grass. Grass is not the same thing as water. Water is not the same thing as the sky. When you want to talk together, you have to have definition, the meaning of the object. That's why Adam started the old language.